Hi guys, so today I'm reviewing this Eye Shine Shadow and Glaze palette by Barry M. This is £6.49. I think I purchased mine in Boots, but I believe that you can also buy it in Superdrug as well. I've already reviewed the Smoking Hot Shadow and Blush palette and the Natural Shadow and Blush palette. We're just going to go through this one. So first of all, let's talk about the packaging. This is what the packaging looks like. So it's almost got that kind of blurred out photographic light effect, and then it's also got kind of like some water droplets, almost to add like an illusion of texture to the palette. So it's pretty nice, definitely different compared to the more plain packaging of the Smoking palette and the Natural palette as well. It doesn't necessarily fit some of the shadows that you will find inside, like these colours here. You kind of expect some kind of bright, kind of cooler tone pastel colours. I feel like that anyway when I look at this packaging. So it does have a magnetic closure. It's kind of nice and handy. And just like with the other palettes, when you open it up, it comes with a mirror as well. And then in this little gap here, you get two sponge tip applicators as per usual. So the difference comes when you open this palette, you still get your 6 eyeshadows. And then here, where in the other two previous palettes you would get a blush, you get this kind of this gloss here, this eye gloss. So let's talk about the shadows and get into some of swatches as well. So the shadows themselves perform pretty well. I feel like they are the nicest shadows to work with out of all 3 of the palettes. I really like the colour payoff and the intensity of some of them, and they're just really beautiful dual toned shadows. They are pretty soft. I don't find any of them to be kind of rough in texture or anything like that. They don't create such a mess in the palette itself, but they do some of them tend to have a little bit of fallout, so that's something to be aware of. Make sure you tap off your brush. And we're just going to go and do some swatches. So the first one here is this. My lighting's pretty dark today, but never mind. This, it's almost like a sea foam green. I feel like it looks darker on this viewfinder because of the lighting. It's just this really beautiful sea foam greeny colour. That's what I'm wearing on my eyes today. Let's just swatch that. Now this one can be a bit powdery, but it is super pigmented. Look at that. I feel like you can see it's more true to colour there. It's really, really beautiful. That's just one swatch, no primer on the hand. On my eyes I'm wearing MAC Painterly Paint Pot as always. But on the hand I'm wearing no primer, and this is what the shade looks like. Really beautiful shade, very easy to blend, and super pigmented. You don't really need to build up this colour too much on the lid. And then the next shade we've got is this kind of silvery grey kind of colour here, and this does have some like glitters, some tiny glitters in it, and they do tend to fall down onto the face, so that's just something else to watch out for. But overall it is a really nice colour. And again, unlike some of the silvers, especially from the drugstore that I find where they're silver and they have a glitter in them, sometimes when you apply them to the eye it doesn't translate and you just get glitter and no colour, but this does have some colour to it. It's really nice. Beautiful metallic shade there. And that's what I'm wearing on the inner corner of my lid. And on my lower lash line as well. Really beautiful, good colour payoff. Very nice. And then we've got this kind of really nice vibrant blue shade here. And these are the 3 shades that I feel like work really well in this palette, like with the packaging. And then these 3 here I don't feel like don't necessarily go, but we'll get to that in a moment. They are still very nice shadows. But we are going to swatch this blue shade. Now this one is quite patchy, very soft to the touch, but it applies quite patchy to the lid, and also it swatches quite patchy as well. So you do need to build this up quite a bit to get that intensity. It's still a nice colour. And that's 2 swipes on that, but it does apply quite patchy. This one also blends away quite easily, so don't be careful not to overblend, or if you do blend, you might find you need to go back in there and build up the intensity again. So it does tend to blend away. But nevertheless, it is a really nice colour. Now we are moving on to this shade here, and it's almost like an amber shade. It's like a goldish orangey shade. Really, really interesting shade, really nice. Just swatch that. This is really beautiful. Now, even though I feel like these are separated into two separate looks almost, like I just feel like this is kind of more autumnal and this is better for summer. I do feel like this amber shadow probably would go quite nicely with a couple of these shadows on my hands. But there it is there, very beautiful, very pigmented. It's a really nice shadow. And then the next shadow is this one here that's like, almost like a brick red in the palette, but once swatched it's more like a burnt orange shade, I feel. This is another one other than that blue shade that does apply quite patchy and does need a little bit of a build up. But again, really, really beautiful colour. I just love the shimmer on these. It's absolutely stunning. So there's that one. And then we have this one, which is it's almost like a rose goldy shade. You'll see what I mean. Especially when you hit the light, it's got a gold, but it's got almost like got a pink running through it. So it's just that shade there. And again, because the lighting's pretty rubbish, I feel like it's not coming up on the viewfinder as it does in real life. But anyway, it does have a really good colour payoff. And it's just a really interesting, unique shade. So that's the swatches, really nice, great colour payoff. Most intense shadows that I've tried out of all of these palettes, like including these two, like this natural palette. If you haven't seen my review on that, I'll link it down below, along with the smoking palette. But I did have a problem with some of the pigmentation in these. This one I don't have so much of a problem, even with the ones that I have to work a bit more with and build up the intensity. The next products that we come up to, the very last one here, is the Glaze / gloss. And this eye gloss is supposed to be applied to your eye once you've applied your shadows, and it's supposed to kind of turn your look from like a powdery shadow look to a really like high fashion glossy look, like you see in those really cool high fashion photographs. It didn't seem to work well for me. I did try to make it work, but I applied with my fingertip and then a sponge tip applicator, and both ways the product was so tacky that it actually removed the eyeshadows that I placed down onto the lid, so it pretty much undid the entire look. I imagine if used on its own it might look really nice in photographs, but I just feel like it's kind of messy and I feel like it would crease throughout the day, so it's not really something that you could wear for every day. It's a really, really cool concept, but it just didn't really work out for me as far as this palette went. Like I say, it does feel kind of tacky. It almost feels like a lip balm, like quite a gloopy lip balm. It's a really, really interesting kind of feeling to it. Just wipe my hands. As for the palette, as I've already said, this I feel like you get two separate looks out of this. So even though I feel like you could mix these two shadows maybe with some of these here, I don't really feel like you could mix that red with any of these. Maybe with the silver, I don't know, but I just feel like it's almost got two separate looks to it. I also feel like these shadows, these warmer tones, don't necessarily go with the packaging. Like when, I almost feel like these warm tones as well don't necessarily go very well with the packaging. Like when I saw this packaging, I almost expected to see all kind of bright, cooler toned colours. A bit like you see this purple in the packaging here, I almost expected to see that in here as well. Maybe like a cool toned purple, or like a pink as well, and maybe like a really nice highlight shadow. I feel like that would have suited the palette more. However, I do really like all of these colours and you can still get some really nice looks out of them, so I don't mind too much. That's just what I personally would have done had I created this palette, I guess. But overall, they are beautiful shades. I'm just not necessarily sure they fit so well together in this palette. It doesn't put me off though, because I really like bright shadows, and as long as I can get some kind of look out of it, it's still not an ultimate miss for me. In terms of the fact that it's an eye shine palette and it's supposed to be able to give you that glossy look, I probably would say that I couldn't recommend it for that, because it didn't necessarily work out for me. Although maybe I've applied it wrong. I'm not a pro, I'm just like just another regular person who really loves makeup. So Maybe if you have any tips on how to apply this to make it work well, if you've tried this palette, then please feel free to comment below and let me know. But that's just my personal experience from it, and because of that I don't think I could recommend it in that respect. But in terms of the performance of these shadows and the fact that they are beautiful dual tone shadows, if you are looking for some really nice dual tone shadows that you could wear throughout the summer and the autumn, it kind of covers you. If you look at it the way that it kind of covers you throughout the year, if you're one of those people that tend to wear warmer kind of autumnal tones in the autumn and winter, and then those brighter tones here in the summer, then it's a palette that will cover that for you. On the fact that they do perform pretty well, even though there are some minor issues with some patchiness, like with this shadow here and the shadow here, it's nothing too major and it's nothing that can't be fixed. So in terms of the fact that if this gloss wasn't here and it wasn't really called an eye shine glaze palette, in terms of the shadows in there, and because it's £6.49, I do feel like it's a real bargain for some really nice dual tone shadows, and in that way I would recommend it, if that makes sense. This is definitely the best palette that I've tried from Barium so far, and like I say, I've tried the Smoking palette, the Smoking Hot palette, and the Natural palette as well. And the Smoking Hot palette is probably the second best performing. Again, you can watch my review on that. And this was my least favourite. This didn't perform as well. But so far, out of the three that I've tried, I definitely recommend this one out of all of them, even though the gloss didn't work out for me. And you could probably see that if it didn't work out for you, it's a bit of a waste because I don't really know what I'm going to use it for. I don't mind so much because it's not a super expensive palette, and like I say, I am pleased enough with the performance of these for me not to be annoyed that I spent £6.49 on it. So, and I guess it's a little bit gimmicky anyway, so I kind of half expected it not to work, but it's fun to try these things out. So anyway guys, like I say, if you are looking for a palette that has some really nice dual tones in some really pretty shades, and like I say, and if you look at it as almost like two separate trios, if you will, then I think that this palette might work out really well for you. As I always say every video, these palettes tend to be available for you to go and swatch in places like Boots and Superdrug, so definitely go and do that, see what you think of them. But as you can see from these swatches, they are some really, really beautiful shadows in this palette, and based on that, I totally recommend it if you can overlook the gloss thing. So yeah, anyway guys, I hope this review on this palette has helped you in some way, and I shall see you in my next video. Bye.